Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. Welcome back, fellow shop rats. I'm glad you get to spend the day with me here in the shop. I got a job of work to do to get some stuff cleaned up before we can do some welding, because we're back on the Stitches Challenger today, and we're going to try to get those two pieces of salvaged floor pan ready to go and installed in the car today.
This is my car's shop.
If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that right now and we'll get into it. Well, there we go. That's a lot better. Thanks for your help. I appreciate it. It's always good to have an extra set of hands. I'm glad you guys are here. You're not here to talk about shop cleaning or watch all of that, but I needed to get that done so that, fire and stuff like that. And it just needs to be done once in a while anyway. There was a lot. So we are actually here today to work on putting in those recycled floor pans that came out of either a CUDA or a 71 and up B body. We're not sure because they're the same size from what I understand. So they're a little smaller than the rear floor pan on a Challenger. So we're going to have to do some adjusting. This is what we have. These came with a chunk that we had that was a whole big, like one piece of the floor pan and then all of that rear seat area. So we've recycled all of that in contrast to fabricating all of this over there and this here. Well, anyway, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, you can see that when we line these up, this is definitely about 2 inches shorter. And we fabricated everything in our last episode down to here now. Haven't installed that yet because I want to get this done first. So I think the place we'll start is going to be with this piece of floor pan right here. And we'll get this prepped and figure out what we need to do to get that installed. Man, that is really not in bad shape, Let me, boy, I'm tempted to not go to all the work of putting this in there when that is so decent. Let me think about this a minute and let's get this cleaned up a little bit better because I haven't put the wire wheel to it. Maybe that will make a decision for us. Obviously, we know we have stuff to do there. I'm not worried about that. So it looks like we've got holes through all of this. So what I'm thinking makes the most sense is we'll just take and cut this out like this, and then take that piece in here that's in really good shape. Then we don't have to make all of that, and we'll just attach it right in there and we should be golden. So I'm going to cut this out first, determine where we need to go on here with it, and we'll start moving forward on getting that piece put in. This wasn't the way I was planning to go, but I hadn't looked at it that close, and this actually is in pretty good shape. Of course, we know we need to make a joiner piece to put it to the subframe connector, but that's minor. I'm not worried about that. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. I think that's going to look pretty cool. Here's the piece we decided to do. Thanks for your help. And this will fit right in here like this, and it'll make a nice little piece, and then it's going to butt right down here against the subframe connector. So you guys have asked me many times about doing a cut and butt, so I'm going to go ahead and do that on this piece. Yeah, you can go over to Fitzy Fabrications and see it a million times, but you guys have asked me about it many times in emails and private messages and stuff like that. So this is a great candidate to go ahead and do that. I think I'm going to go ahead and probably do it from this side. It'll be easier to stand here and weld this in than to try to bend inside of there underneath that bar and so forth. So get this ground up a little bit, get this cleaned up so that we have good clean metal on both sides. I got to do a little hammer and dolly work here to just flatten out our edges so that this does fit nice and flush like a toilet, and then we'll be good to go. This floor pan has a slight there versus the other one, so I think what I'm going to do is I'll just get a step ladder or a milk crate, get up inside with a dolly against that spot, and just give some little quick, just a little teeny bit of hammer and dolly there to try to bend that up maybe. Not sure what's the best scenario here, but if I'm going to do a good cut and butt, I obviously can't have it like that. So a little bit better, but I realize that the floor is still under here and everything is holding this down because of all of these ridges. So I need to go in here and cut it off, like this or something. I don't know. I got to cut it off inside of there is what I'm trying to say, so that we only have about a 1 inch or less strip in there, so all of these beads, especially this one, aren't holding this down, because I think that's our issue right now. So we'll get the cutoff wheel and we'll bzz, bzz, bzz. So I spent a fair whack of time just hammering and dollying everything to get that edge pretty close so I can push that in as I'm welding. So that's pretty good. It ain't perfect, but it'll do. So I think we're ready to go ahead and tack weld that in. We'll make sure that we get it obviously tacked good and tight. And we got, obviously this is flopping around, so that's not great, but I thought about welding a temporary little, I think I will. I think I'll just weld a quick temporary little bzz, bzz in here just to, it won't be in exactly the right spot, but that may help us. And I still got to grind all this up with my grinder anyway. Something that I thought worth mentioning, remember on cut and butt, you're making a 45-degree angle, you know, cut down in here, a thin one. And something I've noticed is that I usually buy these DeWalt cutoff discs. They're supposed to be 45 thousandths of an inch thick. They're more like 69, 70 thousandths. So I'm assuming that the 45 thousandths is a minimum. I usually buy these in like a 10 or a 15 pack. They're about 25 bucks because I go through a ton of them, obviously. Well, they didn't have but a 5 pack, so I grabbed some a while ago that was just you know, to get me by till I found a 10 pack. In the meantime, I found a 15 pack of these Porter cable discs, and I looked at them and they were, you know, the same spec. They were 4.5 inch by 0.045 by 7/8 inch arbor, and that's the same exact spec that's on this. However, this measures more closer to 70. This is actually, I think, 42 thousandths. So if you hold those up, if you can see that, there's a significant difference. This actually is a better disc for doing a cut and butt because your cut down in there's thinner, so your metal's going to fit better. It's falling together nicely now. There's no edge at all. A little teeny bit there. That's more of a burr on the metal, I think. But what, you know, and again, I'm not the inventor of this, and well, Fitzy isn't even the inventor of it. He's just known for it. It's been around a long time. And, you know, as you go through and you weld it to the, you know, flush to the metal, and then you cut your, you cut you at a 45-degree angle, your metal comes together and you've got a nice little overlap like this with no seam for welding. I had a little problem here, so I've got some gap there, but that's still easily fillable. But you can see that because that's cut at a 45, and then as you go along here, it just starts to fall right into place real easily. So I've got to obviously cut here and down here yet, but it's coming together nicely. Once I go through and tack this, and this was a mistake that I used to make a lot, I put too many welds in here, and then I couldn't get the metal off the other side because there's a strip on the other side that we're going to be able to peel off. I'll show you that in a minute. And you've got a nice flush weld. So first of all, don't have a meltdown because I'm not wearing my welding mask. I'm closing my eyes. It's just a little, I can't, I'd be here forever if I was taking off my hearing protection, taking off my shield, putting my welding shield on, tack welding for 5 seconds, taking that off, putting all that back on. So I just close my eyes real quick. For those little bursts, if I was doing long welds, I would never do that. Yes, I know that even with your eyes closed, you can still damage your eyes, but I'm not spending much time at it. It's just a little bit. I don't have any spots in my eyes, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not recommending you do that. I'm saying I'm just too dang lazy to take the amount of time. This takes long enough anyway. This is why I generally just do lap welding rather than cut and butt or butt welding, because this takes a long time to do. But you guys have been asking, so I thought, well, I'll go ahead and do it. It's just not my normal thing to do, but I thought this was a great place to demonstrate for you. Now I need to go through and just cut this down the rest of the way around, and I'm not going to bother filming all that, but I'll show you the end result here as we go along. We'll spin this down, I'll show you the peel on the other side. We're nice and flush, there's no edge. Fit good, that 45 works well. I had to do there's a little bit right there I'm going to need to peen, but that'll be fine. But it's nice and, for the most part all the way around, so we'll straighten that out. Plus I'll be welding this on both sides most likely, so. All right, I'm going to spin the car down now, and we'll show you the strip on the other side that we peel up. Then we can go through and weld this. The second thing I was going to tell you before, and I forgot, was only weld this when you're doing this, when you're butting it, basically. Don't weld it anywhere but where you've already welded, because you're wanting to weld to the weld more than you're wanting to weld to the metal on the other side, if that makes sense. I've made the mistake of trying to put welds in between before I peeled the other side, and what happens is you end up welding to the other side. It makes it miserable to get it out. So here's what we've got. I got one spot that didn't cut through, and I'm not totally sure why, but see how that metal peels up now? So we'll get that peeled out of there, and that piece peels up there. So for some reason, that didn't. So, maybe I need to just go through and cut that on the other side again, and that's probably the way to handle it. So let me do that real quick. There we go. Got it all peeled out now. Somehow, I don't know what I did there, but that's fine. It doesn't much matter. But it's nice and flush all the way around. So we're going to flip it up, get it welded on the other side, and then we'll flip it up or flip it down, weld it in this side once the other side's welded, and we'll get this ground up.
After all, we're doing a ground up restoration.
Here we go. So I have spent way more time on that than I would have done had I done it the overlap method. Like, I've got 3 to 4 hours in that so far, and I'm not even done with it yet. And I still got to weld the other side and grind both sides. So that's part of the reason why a lot of the way I do things is overlap and so forth. For one thing, I believe overlap is stronger. Doesn't look as good, obviously, but on a car like Stitch's, I don't care what it looks like. I'm really not that concerned as long as it looks reasonable. You've seen what the floor pans look like on the other side. Grind them down, seam seal it, it looks decent. That's all I'm after on this car. This is not a high dollar car. This is a beater with a heater. It's a driver. I'm just patching together something that came out of a junkyard. So anyway, that's where I'm at with it. I've got a few more little holes I got to fill. But you can see I cut a couple in here yet I got to fill. But I got to weld it from the other side anyway, so I'll probably catch those when I do that. There we go. I'm not going to get too much carried away grinding like crazy because I don't want to thin the metal out. The metal's already a little thin over here. But you get the idea. I'll go over that with pour 15 patch on both sides probably, because that is in the footwell. I want to go inside. I've already ground the inside down after welding, but I'll show you that. I need to go over it with my 30 or 24 grit on the pneumatic grinder. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against this at all. It's just for the amount of work that I'm doing on this car. If I was doing everything to that level, plus grinding things almost perfectly, so there was no virtually no seams, I'd be using heavier metal, so there'd be more cost. I'd have 4 or 5 times the amount of time into it, and that's why I don't do it. That's what I demonstrate on my channel, is how I do things, and you do things the way you want. Doesn't, neither right nor wrong, doesn't matter. Buy parts, fabricate stuff, cut and butt weld, overlap weld, whatever. It's fine. It's your car. Do it the way you want. There's a few little pits and so forth, but I'm going to go over that with seam sealer anyway, so I'm not going to worry about it. I forgot I got to do this, so that's next. I want to get this side pretty well done before we go on to do that side. And I am running out of time today, so there you go with that. But let's get this piece done, and then we'll get this whole little section here looking pretty. I'm not going to attach it to the subframe connector yet, because I want to make sure that it looks somewhat reasonable level on both sides, like we did over there. I'm starting to make the patch that goes here. It needs to be, L-shaped kind of, but just getting it roughed in right now. There'll be a lot of fitting and trimming once we go to put that other piece back in, but for now this is going to do the job. So yeah, I think I'll just go underneath and just mark it real quick and then get it cut out in shape, and I'll be right back. Right after a brief word from our sponsor. Pretty much what I want right there. So as soon as that bus converter dries, I'll clean that up a little bit and we'll get that welded in there. We'll kind of just form it in place as we go. It's way extra big up here, but we'll deal with that when we install that piece right there. Bottom side's all done for the most part there. Ran a little pour 15 patch around there just in case there was any little pinholes, but for the most part I'm not disappointed with that. So obviously we got a crap ton of work to do down here yet, but the main thing is structurally it's getting close. Turned out all right. Not bad at all. There we go on the inside. Still gonna need to go over it on this side with a little pour 15, but I gotta weld it up there, so I'm not gonna be too worried about that. But turned out really respectable. Talk about a couple things here in just a minute, but I got this patch just roughed in for now so I can make the transition between that piece there that we made and this, of course, so there's more work to do there. But we're about between 5 and 6 hours into getting this done right here. So my goal was to get all of this done today. I'm out of time. It's after 5 o'clock already, and I've been out here since late this morning, so it is what it is, but I'm glad I took the time to demonstrate. But I want to talk about a couple things about the cut and butt like this and why I generally don't do it, more than what I've already said up till now. A couple of things, as I said, it takes so much longer. I don't have that kind of time if I'm going to get stuff done for a car in this context, blah, blah, blah. You've heard me say all of that. The second thing is I feel like an overlap weld has a little bit more strength than this. This little piece here is fine because it's so small and it's welded, right to that subframe connector in there, so not as big a deal on that. The other thing is because this is the factory floor pans, if I remember right, are 21 gauge steel. I'm using 20 gauge to patch most of this. I don't have a lot of forgiveness, especially because what's left of the factory metal is pretty rusty. So I'm not being real crazy about getting it all ground down so perfect that you can't see the seam and all of that stuff, because as you've heard me say 1,000 times already, it's a freaking floor pan. I don't care, but I wanted to demonstrate the technique a little bit. It turned out fairly respectable, but I don't want to get carried away because, and I've seen many people talk about this when it comes to grinding welds, is they grind it, they're trying to get it perfectly flat, like there was no no weld there at all. And I've done that. I demonstrated that a while back for somebody that was asking me some questions, and I just welded up a patch on the bench to show you exactly how to go about doing that if you really want to, and I'm pretty sure I was using 18 gauge there. But I don't want to get carried away, because what happens is if you start really grinding those welds down and trying to make them completely disappear, you can really start getting into the other material, and if there's not much there, all of a sudden you just blew a hole through, or you found a pinhole, so then you have to go back and touch it up with the welder, and because now the material is so thin, you're blowing through. I don't have time for that. I don't have the patience for it. I don't have the time for it. I'm just a get her done, get it moving, and move on to the next thing. Again, different context on a different car, I might not do that, but for what this is, good enough. So, it's respectable. The main thing is it's functional and it's strong, and nobody's feet are going to be doing Fred Flintstone through the floor, and you're not going to be hitting mud puddles. You better not be hitting mud puddles anyway, but you're not going to be hitting big mud puddles on a back gravel road and blasting somebody in the face with mud because there's a big hole in the floor.
I used to do that.
With the car that I had, if I put my foot over the floor mat just right, somebody in the back seat was mouthing off and I'd see a puddle, I'd hit it, put my foot just right on that floor mat, and I could get them right in the face. It was fun. It's all up to you how much time you want to spend and what you want your finished metal to look like, obviously. I'm not for or against. I'm here to share what I do because you guys had asked. I went ahead and did this today. I don't regret doing it. It's a good reminder of why I don't. I just don't have that kind of time. Working full time, doing a band, almost full time sometimes, and doing this channel 3 episodes a week doesn't lend me a ton of time to spend on one project, especially when we have so many projects going on. All right, that's going to do it on this one. Over on the face thing, Instagram loves us, does cookies, /My Car Shop. We're obviously here on YouTube because you're watching. Thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it. And like and subscribe and all that stuff. I'd appreciate that as well. Share the channel, share episodes on any social media platforms that you might be on, or any forums that you might be in, or anybody that you think might be interested. I would appreciate it. The channel's growing like crazy. It's been an exciting weekend to see. We've gained, since yesterday, we've gained almost 20 subs, which is very unusual. We usually don't gain that many in a day, so I'm hoping we're doing something right. All right, that'll do it. We'll catch you on the next one. Rah!